I found out my husband had bought himself a grave while looking for our homeowner's insurance policy. The cemetery contract was folded inside his desk beneath our tax returns. LOT 18B. Owner, David Monroe. Paid in full. I might have laughed if I hadn't seen the attached photograph. The grave beside his future plot belonged to a woman named Marian Cole, 1949-2004. Beloved mother. I had never heard her name. David and I had been married 33 years. We had already discussed where we wanted to be buried, together, near our daughter. Yet 3 months earlier, without telling me, my husband had paid almost $6,000 to spend eternity beside a stranger. When David came home, I placed the contract on the kitchen table. He stopped walking. Who is Marian Cole? He looked at the paper, then at me. For several seconds, he said nothing. Finally, he pulled out a chair. Claire, I can explain. Good. I pointed at the photograph. Start with why you want to be buried next to another woman. His face changed. Not guilt exactly. Something worse. Grief. Then he said, because I kept you away from her while she was alive. And suddenly the grave wasn't the secret. I was. My name is Claire Monroe. I was 56 years old when I found the cemetery contract, and until that afternoon, I believed I understood the man I had married. David was 59. We met when I was 22 and married 2 years later. He was steady, practical, patient, and almost painfully dependable. If a storm was coming, David filled the gas tank before anyone else knew rain was forecast. If I had a doctor's appointment, he remembered the time even when I didn't. If our daughter Lauren called at midnight, David answered before the second ring. His greatest strength was also his weakness. David needed to protect people, even when they hadn't asked. Especially when they hadn't asked. He could turn love into a locked door and convince himself the lock was for your safety. I had complained about it for years. I never understood how far it had gone. My own weakness was different. I hated uncertainty. If I saw a strange charge on a bank statement, I needed to know what it was before I slept. If someone paused before answering me, I heard the pause louder than the answer. That tendency had made me good at my job as a school administrator. It had also made me exhausting during arguments. Our daughter Lauren inherited both of us. At 30, she was fiercely loyal like David and relentlessly suspicious like me. She loved people hard and judged them quickly. By the time I called her that night, I had already searched Marian Cole online. Mom, Lauren said, maybe Dad bought the plot for someone else. It has his name on it. Then ask him. I did, and he said he kept me away from her. Lauren went silent. Then she asked the question I had been avoiding. Do you think he had an affair? Marian would have been 55 when she died. David had been 37, old enough, married to me, father to an 11-year-old daughter. Suddenly, 33 years of ordinary business trips, late meetings, and forgotten explanations rearranged themselves inside my head. False suspicion is easy when the person you love has given you just enough truth to be afraid. David slept in the guest room that night because I asked him to. Before closing the door, he said, Marian was never my lover. Then who was she? He looked at me. Someone you should have known. I waited. He didn't continue. That was when I decided I would find out without him. The next morning, I drove to Green Hollow Cemetery. Lot 18A was beneath a maple tree near the western fence. Marian Cole's headstone was simple gray granite. Marian Elizabeth Cole, 1949-2004. Beloved mother. She kept the light on. There were fresh white irises beneath the stone, my favorite flowers. I stared at them longer than I want to admit. David brought me white irises every anniversary. For several minutes, I hated a dead woman I had never met. Then the groundskeeper ruined that theory. You're David's wife? I turned. He was an older man named Earl. You know my husband? Sure, he comes around. How often? Earl shrugged. Couple times a year. My stomach tightened. For how long? Long time. 5 years? He laughed softly. Oh no, I've been here 18 years. He was visiting before I started. The air seemed to leave my lungs. David had been visiting Marian's grave for most of our marriage. Earl pointed toward the irises. He usually brings those. I nearly walked away. Then I noticed another name carved into the back of the marker. Natalie Cole Bennett. Loving daughter. No date of death. A living daughter. That changed the shape of my suspicion. I searched for Natalie from my car. I found a 52-year-old woman in Charlottesville who worked as a physical therapist. There were photographs. Natalie had Marian's eyes, dark, wide-set, unmistakable. Then I found an old newspaper obituary from 2004. Marian Cole, 55. Survived by daughter Natalie Bennett and a daughter from whom she was separated in infancy. No name, no explanation, just one sentence. A daughter separated in infancy. I read it again, then again. I had been born in 1970. Marian had been 21. Something cold moved through me. I called Natalie before I could talk myself out of it. A woman answered. Hello? My name is Claire Monroe. Silence. I thought the call had dropped. Then she whispered, David finally told you. I stopped breathing. No. Another silence. Oh God. Who are you? She began crying. Not loudly. The kind of crying someone does when they have imagined a conversation for decades and suddenly realizes it is happening wrong. Claire, she said, Marian was our mother. I drove home with no memory of the road. David was waiting in the kitchen. He knew the moment he saw my face. You called Natalie. I slapped the newspaper obituary onto the table. Tell me she's lying. He closed his eyes. That was my answer. My parents, Evelyn and Frank Harris, had raised me in a brick house outside Richmond. I had my mother's stubborn chin. That was what people told me. I had my father's laugh. That was what he told everyone. They had both died believing, apparently, that I would never question either statement. Was I adopted? David nodded. The room tilted. By strangers? No. Then who were they? Evelyn was Marian's older sister. My mother was my aunt. My father was my uncle by marriage. The words felt ridiculous inside my head. I was 56 years old. People my age were supposed to discover cholesterol problems and forgotten retirement accounts. Not new mothers. Why? David explained that Marian had me when she was 21. She was unmarried. My biological father had left before I was born. Evelyn was 30, married, financially stable, and unable to have children. Marian struggled after the birth. Depression, no money, no support. Evelyn offered to take me temporarily. Then temporary became permanent. There was a legal adoption? Yes. Did Marian agree? David hesitated. That hesitation became another question. Did she? She signed the papers. That isn't what I asked. He looked down. She regretted it. How soon? Almost immediately. My hands began shaking. Marian spent years asking Evelyn to let her see me. Evelyn refused. She believed contact would confuse me. Frank agreed. Eventually, Marian left Virginia. She married. She had Natalie. She built another life. But she never stopped asking about me. How do you know all this? David didn't answer. I stepped closer. How do you know? He rubbed both hands over his face. Your father told me. When? After he got sick. My father had died 8 months earlier. That timeline almost made sense. Almost. Then I remembered what Earl had said. David had visited Marian's grave for at least 18 years. My father's illness had lasted 11 months. You're lying. David froze. You knew before Dad died. Claire, how long? He looked toward the window. How long have you known who Marian was? His answer came so quietly, I almost missed it. Since before our wedding. There are betrayals that arrive like explosions. This one arrived like arithmetic. 33 years married. 22 years since Marian died. 32 years since David first knew. I sat down because my knees stopped cooperating. You knew when you married me? Yes. You knew my mother was alive? Yes. And you never told me. He began. Your parents? I raised one hand. Do not blame dead people for a decision you made while breathing. He stopped. The story came out slowly. 3 months before our wedding, Marian returned to Virginia. She had learned through a relative that I was getting married. She contacted Frank. She wanted to meet me. My father panicked. He told David everything because he believed my future husband should know before Marian appeared unexpectedly. Then Frank asked him for help. Help doing what? Keeping her away until after the wedding. I laughed. It sounded ugly even inside my own kitchen. David met Marian at a diner outside Richmond. He expected an unstable woman. That was how my parents described her. Instead, he found a 42-year-old mother carrying a folder of photographs and letters addressed to me. She asked you to give them to me. Yes. Did you? No. My throat tightened. Why? David stared at his hands. Because I was 26 and stupid enough to think I knew what would protect you. He said Marian was emotional, angry. She blamed Evelyn. She admitted she had struggled with alcohol years earlier. David became afraid she would arrive days before our wedding and tear apart my family. So he made her a promise. Give him 6 months. After the wedding, he would help arrange contact. 6 months passed. Then I became pregnant. David decided pregnancy was the wrong time. Lauren was born early and spent 9 days in the hospital. Then my mother had surgery. Then my father lost his job. There was always another reason. That's not protection, I said. I know. That's cowardice. Yes. For the first time, he didn't defend himself. But the worst part was still coming. Did you ever see Marian again? David nodded. How many times? Maybe 12. I stood so fast the chair hit the floor. You had a relationship with my mother. No, you met her 12 times while I didn't know she existed. She kept asking me to tell you. And what did you say? Soon. That word broke something inside me. Soon. The most dangerous word cowards use. It promises action while allowing nothing to change. Then David said, she wrote to you every year. I stared at him. Where are the letters? He looked toward the basement door, and I understood that my dead mother had been speaking to me for decades from somewhere inside my own house. The box was behind David's workbench, blue plastic, dust along the lid, my name written in Marian's handwriting, Claire. There were 32 letters, birthday cards, photographs, Christmas notes, a hospital bracelet from the day I was born, a lock of infant hair inside wax paper. The first letter began, Dear Claire, I don't know what they have told you about me, so I'm going to begin with the only part no one has the right to change. I wanted you. I stopped reading. David stood several feet away. You kept these in our house? Yes? Why not destroy them? His face twisted. Because every year I believed I would finally tell you. That doesn't make this better. I know. I opened another letter. Marian wrote about seeing me once from across a grocery store parking lot when I was 14. She didn't approach because Evelyn had threatened to seek a restraining order. Another described my college graduation she had attended from the back row. Another contained a newspaper clipping from the day I became assistant principal. She had circled my photograph. Proud of you, sweetheart. I couldn't breathe. She had been near the edges of my life without ever entering it. Then I found the photograph that destroyed my final excuse for David. It showed him sitting beside Marian in a hospital room, date stamped March 2004, 6 weeks before she died. You knew she was sick. He nodded. Cancer? Yes. Did she ask for me? David began crying, not quietly. He covered his face like a man trying to disappear inside his own hands. She begged me. I felt nothing for him in that moment. Nothing. What did you tell her? That Lauren was having problems at school. Your dad had just had his first heart scare. You were overwhelmed. You decided I was too overwhelmed to meet my dying mother. Yes. Did she die believing I didn't want her? No. How do you know? I told her the truth. What truth? That you didn't know. I stared at him. Marian had died knowing her daughter had never rejected her. She had also died knowing the man who promised to unite us never found the courage. David reached into the box and removed one final envelope. She gave me this the last time I saw her. On the front, for Claire, when David is brave enough. I almost laughed. Even Marian had understood him. I met Natalie 2 days later. We chose a coffee shop halfway between our homes. I recognized her before she stood, not because she looked like Marian, because she looked like me. Same hands, same crease between the eyebrows, same habit of touching the rim of a coffee cup before drinking. She hugged me. I didn't hug her back at first. Then 36 years of being someone's little sister without knowing it caught up to me. I held her until both of us cried. Natalie's weakness was resentment. She had spent her entire adult life imagining my childhood as something stolen from her mother. To Natalie, Evelyn was almost a villain. She took you. She adopted me. She pressured Mom. Mom signed. She was 21 and sick. She was still an adult. The conversation became sharp. Then Natalie stopped. You're defending the woman who raised you. Yes. She nodded. I'd probably do the same. That mattered. Nobody in this story was simple. Evelyn had loved me completely. She also kept another woman from me. Frank had been a wonderful father. He also helped preserve the lie. Marian loved me. She also spent years drinking after losing me, and some of Evelyn's fears had not been invented. David loved me, and love had become the excuse he used for the worst betrayal of my life. Natalie showed me photographs. Marian at 40, at 50, holding Natalie's son, standing beside a Christmas tree. Ordinary pictures. That was what hurt most. I had expected a tragic stranger. Instead, I found a woman who bought ugly sweaters, overcooked turkey, laughed with her mouth open, and planted tomatoes every spring. A mother who had existed in normal Tuesdays I never got to share. Before leaving, Natalie asked, "Why did David buy the grave?" "I don't know." She looked confused. "What grave?" I showed her the contract on my phone. Natalie's face changed. "Claire, that plot wasn't available." "What?" "Mom tried to buy it before she died." I stared at her. "She wanted it for you." In Marian's final year, she had tried to purchase the empty plot beside hers, not because she expected me to die, because she wanted to leave me something that could not be hidden in a drawer. A choice. Natalie showed me a copy of Marian's handwritten note to the cemetery. "If my daughter Claire ever learns who I am and wants this place, I would like her to have the right to decide." Marian paid a deposit. After her death, the remaining payments stopped. The cemetery eventually returned the plot to inventory. David had known. Of course he had. He had kept the paperwork with everything else. 3 months earlier, Green Hollow Cemetery contacted him because an old address on Marian's file had been traced to him. Someone wanted to purchase Lot 18B. David had 48 hours to claim it before it was sold, so he bought it, with his own name on the deed, Natalie said. I drove directly home. David was in the garage. "Why is your name on Marian's plot?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "The cemetery wouldn't hold it without a purchaser. You could have put mine. I couldn't buy a burial plot in your name without your signature." "So you bought it for yourself?" "No." "Then why does the contract say David Monroe?" "Because I plan to transfer it to you after I told you everything." "When?" He had no answer. Again. I laughed until tears came. "You were going to wait another 30 years? No, I don't believe you. I deserve that." That answer made me angrier because it sounded so reasonable. He went inside and returned with another document, a transfer form, my name already typed into the recipient line, unsigned. Then I noticed the date. He had prepared it 2 months before I found the contract. For once, he had actually intended to tell me. He just hadn't done it yet. That didn't erase 32 years, but truth doesn't become useless simply because it arrives late. Then I asked the question I had avoided. "Where do you actually want to be buried?" David looked at me. "Beside you." "Then why didn't you buy 2 plots?" "Because Marian only left one." His voice broke. "And after what I did, I didn't think I had the right to decide which side of you I belonged on." That was the moment my anger finally made room for grief. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just grief. David and I separated for 4 months, not dramatically. He rented a furnished apartment 15 minutes away. We still talked. Sometimes I screamed. Sometimes he answered. Sometimes neither of us knew what to say. Lauren was furious with him. Her first reaction was simple. I'd never forgive him. Then she read Marian's letters. Her certainty softened. That was Lauren's moral conflict. It is easy to demand permanent punishment for someone else's betrayal. Harder when the guilty person is the father who taught you to ride a bicycle and drove 6 hours to fix your broken furnace. David began therapy. I did too. I learned something uncomfortable there. I had spent years telling myself David's protectiveness was sweet when it benefited me. I only called it controlling when I discovered the price. That didn't make us equally responsible. We weren't. But it forced me to examine why I had sometimes preferred being protected over being informed. 8 months after I found the contract, Natalie and I went to Marian's grave together. I brought all 32 letters. I had read every one. The final letter was the shortest. Claire, if you are reading this, then either David finally kept his promise or the truth found another door. Please don't spend your life deciding which woman was your real mother. Evelyn raised you. I gave birth to you. We both loved you. We both failed you in different ways. You don't owe the dead a verdict. You only owe yourself an honest life. Love, Mom. I read it twice, then I sat on the grass between Marian's stone and the empty plot. David arrived 20 minutes later because I had asked him to come. He stood several yards away until I waved him closer. I made a decision about the grave, I said. He nodded. I'm not taking it. His face changed. You don't want to be beside her? I don't know where I want to be buried. I looked at Marian's name, but she lost enough choices because other people made them for her. I'm not going to turn her last gift into another obligation. What happens to the plot? I looked at Natalie. She was crying. Her husband was cremated. She wants to be buried beside her mother. Natalie covered her mouth. David nodded. That feels right. Then I handed him the transfer form. I changed the name. He read it. Inati Eliali Ben Anet. He signed immediately. No argument. No attempt to protect anyone from the decision. Just a signature. For David, that was progress. A year later, we moved back in together. That surprises some people. Forgiveness is often described like a door, open or closed. Mine wasn't. It was more like rebuilding a house after discovering rot inside the walls. Some rooms survived. Some had to be torn down. I never forgave David for keeping Marian from me while she was alive. I don't think I ever will. But I forgave the man who finally stopped defending what he had done. Those are not the same thing. On our 34th anniversary, David brought me flowers. He stood in the kitchen holding white irises. Then he looked embarrassed. I can get roses. I took the flowers. No. I touched one of the petals. These were hers too, weren't they? He nodded. Her favorite. For 33 years, I thought they were mine because David had chosen them for me. The truth was stranger. Marian had once told him white irises meant faith that survived bad weather. He started buying them for me after she died. Another secret hiding inside something beautiful. I placed them in water. Then I said, "Next year, ask me what flowers I want." David smiled through tears. "I will." And for the first time in our marriage, I believed he understood the difference between loving me and choosing for me. I used to think betrayal meant discovering that someone never loved you. Now I know some betrayals happen because someone loves you and becomes arrogant enough to believe that love gives them authority over your truth. My parents thought silence gave me a stable childhood. David thought silence protected my marriage, my pregnancy, my daughter, my peace. Marian sometimes believed her pain entitled her to demand a place in my life. Natalie believed anger could speak for a mother who was no longer alive. And I believed the people I loved would always tell me anything important because that was easier than asking whether they had decided I was too fragile to know. The stranger in the cemetery was not a stranger. She was my mother. But the hardest truth was not that Marian had been hidden from me. It was that the person who knew where to find her had slept beside me for more than 30 years. I lost years I can never recover. No apology can return them. No grave can repair them. But I learned something from the empty space beside Marian's stone. Where we are buried matters far less than what we allow people to know while we are still alive. The dead cannot ask one more question. They cannot make one more phone call. They cannot say, "I was wrong," or tell me everything. We can, and sometimes that is the only second chance we get. Could you stay married to someone who hid your biological mother from you for more than 30 years because he believed he was protecting you? Would you forgive David? Would you blame Claire's adoptive parents more? Or do you think some secrets are so personal that nobody, not even a husband or parent, has the right to keep them? And if Marian had left that grave beside her for you, would you choose to be buried there? Write what you think in the comments. You think in the comments. You think in the comments. You think in